Okay, I hope my microphone is okay. Less than a minute, so almost ready to start the show as usual. And my hope it's going to work today because it's a tough one, but soon about that. More about it soon. Hi, John. Hi, Dan. Hi, Charles. Hi, Micro Homesteaders again. So let's start the show. This show is sponsored by Xkeys, the company that knows how to push the button. Hello everyone, welcome to already, for me at least, episode number 6. I wasn't sure if there was going to be an episode today, and I'm not sure if everyone is going to be okay that I tell why, but it's my way of coping with it. And yeah, I just want to share it, why there was almost an episode and why this is maybe going to be kind of a special one. I had a crash at work last Friday and went to the doctor, and appeared that I have a kind of a burnout. So he wanted to put me at rest for a month. I agreed with him in 2 weeks. And those who are familiar with burnout knows that emotional things are going up and down. So I have good moments, I have bad moments. Yesterday evening during Wolf show, I had a bad moment and I couldn't come live, I think for one of the first time, but I followed it into the chat. And immediately afterwards I was saying I'm not going to do a show tomorrow. But all and behold, this morning the sun was shining. I went out for a walk. That did me well. I was still in doubt when I came home. But then I thought this is kind of a pivotal point for me. Okay, I'm not 100%, but if I'm not going to do a show now after already 5 shows, it's not going to give a good impression. So I prefer to do a show even it's not going to be the best one. That's why I decided early afternoon to do a show. And the subject of tonight's show is going to be everything about audio. Now, I've prepared a lot this afternoon, a lot on paper, so you're going to notice that I'm going to look a lot to my papers. I'm not an audio engineer. I'm still learning a lot about audio and vMix. There are some people in the chat who know a lot more about audio than me. So if I say something wrong or if you have something to add, please feel free to add these comments. An interesting thing maybe to start with is it's not always easy if people ask, can you tell me the URL of your YouTube video? And often then you have to say, okay, go to www.schooloflivestreaming.com/ and then combination of numbers and letters. Or go to my YouTube channel and there you can find everything. So what I did was on my website, I can create short links. And every show has its own link now. So for instance, the the first show you can find schooloflivestreaming.com/YouTube1. If you want to know, okay, what was the link again of the second show, schooloflivestreaming.com/YouTube2. So this show is going to be www.schooloflivestreaming.com/YouTube6. So that's a lot easier to remember, and I can track the link. So if I put the link on Facebook, on Twitter, I can follow on my WordPress site how many clicks I have for show A, B, C, D, and so on. So that's something that makes it a lot easier to share links with other people. Very interesting for the people in Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, that tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, there is a vMix Fun Time live show of March, and there's going to be a giveaway of 3 t-shirts and who knows, maybe some interesting info. I totally lost track with the time difference, Charles. 8 p.m. Eastern, that's probably for us going to be 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. So, but for the people who want to win a t-shirt or so and learn a little bit about vMix, this night is the monthly show. Okay, so this away, and for the second time in a row I forgot to click the record button, and it was noticed on my paper, push record button. But as we start the official part now, it's not that bad. So audio is a very big part in vMix, and I'm going to do it in 4 sessions. So the first one is how can you bring in audio. The second one is basic audio setup. The third part is about the audio settings, and the fourth is about audio monitoring. So how can you bring in audio? And I'm going to show you a lot the desktop capture here in the mixer. The first option you have is you can bring in embedded audio. What I mean by that is this camera I'm using, it has audio embedded. I'm not using the audio because I'm using a professional mic. But let's say that you have a camera with XLR connections, professional ones. You can bring in a professional microphone, even with a 3.5 mil. You can bring in a microphone. And let me switch to my desktop capture. If you click on Add Input, you see here when you bring in a camera, and I choose my camera for instance, you see here a box audio enabled. So I'm not going to tick it now. If you tick this one, audio enabled, you bring in your audio. The advantage of doing audio the embedded way is that it's always going to be in sync, and here you can choose your channels of your audio. So that's the big advantage of bringing in embedded audio. It's always going to be in sync. The second option you have, and I can't show you it because I don't have it, is via a USB microphone. Like in the first or the second episode, I talked about microphones, and one of the microphones was the Audio-Technica ATR 2100, for instance. So you just connect your microphone, and you have add input, audio input, and then you choose. It's always the same. Add input, audio input. Here you're going to choose your audio microphone, and you can bring it an audio microphone that way. Now, what I learned by looking a few things up in also on the web, and the guys of vMix made a special thing about it. That's when you bring in audio via USB, your audio is probably going to be a little bit ahead of your video. And I'm going to do a test today. Until now, I didn't play with a latency. Now I've done it, and that's I'm going to show you the third way. So you can bring a USB, a professional microphone or whatever via a mixer. That's what I'm using. And my mixer is connected via a USB cable to my laptop. So if I click again on Add Input, and I click here on Audio Input, when I click here on Audio Device, I have to choose here Microphone USB Audio Codec. Now, what's interesting here is this option, Mute in Headphones. We're going to talk about that later, but that gives you the option, if you tick this one, that you're not hearing your own voice into your earphones, and that's a very handy option. You can do it later, but it's here to do it immediately. So this was it, the four parts how you can bring in audio. Now, the basic audio setup is again, when you click Add Input, Audio Input, and you click here. Here you click your microphone, and you click OK. You're going to add your audio thing. Now you see here on my microphone the green button Audio. That means that your audio is on. It's the first thing you can verify that your audio is on. So here audio is on. By default, when you add your microphone, the audio is always going to be routed to the master bus. So here you're seeing the master bus. So every audio is by default being routed to the master bus. The second way of verifying if you have audio levels is next to your input. So you see here the volume meters next to my audio input, and here in the middle, this is the master output. So you can see here that I have audio output. Now I'm going to quickly mute and unmute my audio, and then you're going to see here, if I click here on audio, that the volume meter, instead of green, is going to be blue. That means that there is still an audio signal coming in, but it's not routed to the master. And you're going to see here that there's no audio meter anymore. So I'm going to click here quickly on my audio, and you're going to see here that here it's blue and here there's nothing. So that's a good way to verify if you have audio levels. I quickly take a look into the chat here. Okay. Yes, Dan is saying how important audio is, and probably everyone here on the show remembers what happened in episode 0. So it's maybe it's the most important part of vMix, and the moment you know what you're doing, it's easy, and it's going to be easier even in the future when I show you how to use shortcuts and stuff like that. Now, here on the right-hand lower part of the vMix interface, this is your audio mixer. And what you can do here, if you want more space, is if I right-click on the title, it's minimizing these things. If you right-click again, it's there. So you can say, okay, X keys MP4, I don't need it for the moment. My background music, I don't need it for the moment, to create a lot of more space. A very interesting one to use is here the pin. When I click on the pin, you see that it's undocked. And that gives you the option, for instance, to put it on a second screen. And if you have a second person to use it, an audio engineer, for instance, he can use this here on one screen, and you can do the production on another screen. Same computer, two screens. Very interesting option. To bring it back, just click here on the minus symbol. You can also here drag the line if you have a lot of audio inputs. If you don't have a lot of audio inputs, you can do it. You can change this way. And the last thing you can do here is, if you click here on audio mixer itself, the audio mixer is gone. Your audio inputs are not gone, but it gives you a lot more place to see your inputs. So that's a little bit about the interface. What the symbols are we going to see later. Now, your master here, the master bus, this is what's being used for the stream, for the record, and for the external output. So everything that's put into the master bus goes to stream, record, and external output. That's also very important to remember. Now, something that's been said to me, I think it was last week, is follow audio. And it's a big one. By default, live audio, such as your microphone, is always going to be active, regardless of what input is in use. If I change to this input, you're always going to hear my microphone. If I'm going backwards, you're still hearing my microphone. Now, camera input, the audio from a camera, video files, audio files, they're only active when they are in the output window. So what that means is, the moment, let's say I don't have, there's not audio in it, but let's say that I have this one, there is audio, you are hearing the audio now, for instance. If I click to another input, the audio is gone. So you have to decide what you want. Do I want the audio during all my production, or do I just want it when I cut from one input to the other? And that can be done, for instance, if I go to an input setting here. Let's take this one, for instance. Here you're seeing that it's normally it's ticked. Yeah. I've unticked automatically mix audio for this one. Why? And you can also see that if I click when I click in the options, you have to look here on here these two symbols. They're going to be muted if I change it here. So I click again here, and if I click here, automatically mix audio. You're seeing now that it's activated here. If I click again, you're seeing it's not activated. So that's a double check to see if you have follow audio or not. Why would you use it this way? Like this input, for instance, it's background music. So maybe you want the background music during all your production on a very low level, and you don't want that the audio is muted when you change inputs. So let's try it. So when I click here on the gear icon, I untick, like it already unticked, automatically mix audio. And if I click here now on the play button, and you're seeing now here it's blue, so but the audio is not going out already. If I click here on audio, if everything goes as supposed, you're going to hear now background audio. Can you people in the chat room confirm that you are hearing now audio as a background? So if this is working, you see here that by unticking the follow audio and clicking here play and audio, you have an audio during all your production. You can do it with multi-view and stuff like that, but this one is how you can play an audio clip during the rest of your production. Okay, what's next? Yeah, why it's also used is if you like the guys on the vMix show, they are using two microphones at the same time, and what you don't want because they're talking to each other, what you don't want to happen is if Martin is speaking at the moment and there's a cut to Tim, that Martin audio is also cut, and for that you also have to click here, untick automatically mix audio, and then your audio is always going to be on. Same for a PowerPoint, and so if you want that the audio, that there is a background music during your PowerPoint, untick it here. There is a big discussion on the vMix, was a big discussion on the vMix forum, what should be the default behavior, automatically follow audio or not follow audio. Some people suggested that you should be able to set it up in your preferences, but yeah, it's a discussion, and at SOLS we also discussed a little bit about it, and we were the consensus was that it should be enabled by default, so that you're not hearing audio that you don't want to hear, and if you cut inputs, that your audio, that the audio of the input that's going away is also going to be away. But the follow audio is certainly something important to play with. It's even very easy to do in vMix, because you can combine shortcuts and triggers to mute, unmute audio, follow audio. You can do everything with shortcuts, but that's for a later episode. Okay, this was it for the second part, almost. What you're also seeing here on the mixer is the S. People who have a mixing board like I am, often the S is there, and the S is the solo button. With the solo button, if I click on the solo button, for instance, on what it's the background music here, I can listen in my headphones to the levels, and I'm only hearing this input now. I can check, okay, my levels are okay for that. I'm on, and you're seeing here also on top, you're going to see solo. So I'm going to do it again. So I'm soloing this input. So here on top, you're seeing an orange solo button. So that's an easy way to quickly check if the volume level of an input it's okay or not. That's the solo button. And it doesn't have an influence on what you're sending out to the master bus. So it's completely different from the master. Now, about the delay, I told you before that USB, when you bring in audio via USB, it can happen, and it probably is going to happen, that the audio is a little bit ahead of the video. Something you don't have when you bring in it embedded. How can you change that? If I take my audio microphone here, I click on, and I click here on the cog wheel. It opens here my settings. I'm going to audio settings, and here on delay, you see that I've put 80 milliseconds. Why 80 milliseconds? To be honest, I just copied the value that the people of vMix are using. I have to play with it. I did a very short test a little bit earlier. It seems to be okay, but here you can put whatever you want. Maybe it's only need 50 milliseconds, then you put 50 milliseconds, and when you put the delay here, your audio and your video are going to be in sync. Okay, let's have a peek at the chat if they're seeing here. Okay. Johnny's saying, are we sure he's got a mixer? Maybe it's a cardboard box that he's drawn on buttons and sliders in a permanent marker. That's a good one. Okay. The third part now is audio settings. So we're going to delve a little bit deeper in the audio settings now. So each input in vMix has its own settings. In the mixer, it's the gear icon here. In the input here, you have the knob audio. So if I click here on audio, you can do settings. As always, there's a lot options. If I click here on, and I'm going to change again here. If I click here on the gear icon, you can see here a lot of options. The format you're going to see is a format I've been taking for my mixing board. You can't change it here, it's automatically. The channel, it's when you have an old mixing board and you bring in stereo, then you can choose here, for instance, separate mono, and you have 2 separate mono channels. Device volume, it's the volume that's coming in, but I never touched it so far. Gain and the gain, if you not know what you're doing with it, just leave it alone. You can give here a little bit more gain if needed, and delay, we just touched it over here. Now, device volume is sometimes interesting when you bring in a USB microphone, and what device volume does is it alters the volume before it comes into vMix. So afterwards you can with the mixer you can change the volume, but here with the device volume you're changing the volume input of the USB microphone before it enters vMix. So it's mainly used with USB microphone. Now, pre and post, and I'm going to show you it by choosing another input here, my background music. But for that I have to start it here. Okay. So what you're seeing here, pre is the volume level, how it comes into vMix. And post is what you're doing after equalizing, or as I've lowered it by quite a margin here. So this is post. Pre is how it comes into vMix. Post is after you've done some changes. And I'm going to close this one and shut that down. So as you see, and we're almost to the last part, there's so many possibilities audio-wise, and I'm not still very comfortable when using that option, this option, when to change a few things, but it's something you have to. The best advice I can give is use the record button in vMix, create a production, play with all the options, and you're going to see what happens at that moment. Right, for instance, on the 10th minute, I did that change, I did that, or just speak and say what you're doing, and I learned quite a lot by that. But there's so many possibilities, and we still not come to the end. So a tricky part I want to show you, and I hope it's going to work, is VST plugins. So I think it was a version ago, vMix added VST3 plugins. VST plugins are plugins that audio plugins that can alter the way your audio is behaving. You can add some echo, you can add some equalizing, you can do some normalizing. Whatever your imagination is, almost everything is possible with those plugins. I know that a lot of people are using a plugin, for instance, to a limiter, so that you're not going over a certain volume level before going out to the internet or to your recording. Now, what's important is it has to be VST3 plugins, so VST3 plugins and 64-bit. The other ones, it's not going to be sure if they're going to work. The ones that are working are the VST3 plugins, and that are 64-bit. And I'll try to find something here, because they have to be on a very specific directory. Okay, VST3, and then I'll show you my So when you download a plugin, or there is an installer and it's not working, you have to see that the plugins are under your C, program files, common files, VST3. And here you see that this plugin is a 64-bit plugin, and it ends on VST3. So that's important. They have to be in this directory, program files, common files, VST3, and the plugin has to end on VST3. So that's important to know. Now, how can we edit? And I hope it's still going to work. Let's say that I want to monitor. I have one plugin that let's say I want to monitor my where is it here? Okay, I want to monitor my audio here from my microphone. I click here on the cogwheel, audio settings. Yeah, so I'll start again. Cogwheel, audio settings, and then I click here on plugins, on the plus symbol. Here it's going to see in the right directory, the one I showed you a little bit earlier. It's going to find all the plugins that are related to this one. If I click OK, and now you see here, but you're not seeing, I'm going to put it on another screen, but because you're not seeing it on my screen here. Okay, here. So here you can see, for instance, this is one that's a simple VU meter, and you can see here and check how your volume levels are. This VU meter is supposed to be a little bit better than the built-in of vMix, but there are tons of plugins you can use. I know some people in the chat want video plugins to calibrate colors and stuff. There's a lot. If you're interested in that, on the vMix forum, some people are asking to give it a +1, so that we can have the same possibilities as audio, but with video, and we can change our cameras with plugins or something like that. Okay, before we going to the last part, let me check the chat quickly. A lot going on here and a lot interesting things. So that's good that I'm not going to edit my my shows anymore, because then the chat is saved, and a lot of interesting discussions are going on here. Let me quickly do something else so you're not always seeing let me quickly do this on. So there was a question from John. What audio delays are folks using with the PTZ optics and the iCams and the bird dog? Now Giles from World of Live Streaming has used the bird dog together with Martin, and the answer of Giles is, when we tried bird dog, it was so close that it didn't notice any sync issue between it and the UMC 404. So that's very interesting, that there's almost no latency. So that's something you, of course, you're going to play with, like this latency. How much latency do I have? There's not one rule. Even maybe if I have a Behringer UMC 404 and someone else has a Behringer UMC, maybe the combination of the Behringer together with your laptop can give a little other latency than normal. So it's something you have to test for yourself. But I think it's important that your audio and video are in sync. Okay, Martin Street, late as usual, but anyway, welcome. I'm not going to start again. It was already a big hurdle to set up this part, but you're just in time for the last part. And I have to take my notes again. Sorry for, yeah, people were saying, yeah, you need to ask for your New Year or something, something that you can read. But well, sometimes the old-fashioned way is handy. It's not professional, but it's handy. So what we're going to talk about in the last part is audio monitoring. Now, by default, monitoring in vMix is using the headphones output. So by default, your master audio is routed through your master output device and your headphone device. So the master audio is what, as I said earlier, is what you hear in your stream, record, and external output. But sometimes, of course, you don't want to hear everything in your earphones. So the first thing most people are doing is, I don't want to hear my own microphone, but because of the latency, it's driving you crazy. And that's why people are here on audio microphone. When I click here, I click on audio settings. Here you see my headphones. It's not on. What I see people doing here you can change the volume, what you're hearing. So my audio is coming through my speakers now, so you're probably hearing a little bit of feedback. And if they want to mute it, they turn it here completely down. But there is a quicker way. If you click here on the headset, now it's on, now it's off. So, and that's a way here to quickly say what's not going to your headphones or not. And you can do it for whatever input you want. If I click here on the background music and you say, oh, I want to stream it, for instance, in the pre-show, what I did, I want to let it go to the pre-show, but I'm hearing it every week. I don't want to hear it into my headphones. You just click it here. Now it's unticked. You're not going to hear it in your headphones. So this for audio inputs and how to quickly tell what to put in your audio headphones or not. There are other ways, but they are very much more complicated, and I'm just quickly going to show you at the end of the show. But as I don't know it exactly how it's working, I'm not going to tell you a lot about it. Now there are a lot of other possibilities for audio, and here when you go to settings, and I'll have to take my desktop capture again. So I'm going to settings, and then I'm going to audio outputs. Here normally sorry, by default it's on default Windows playback device, the master output and the headphones. Because I'm using it for another show, and I'm going to talk about these options in later shows when we're going to talk about vMix call and stuff like that. But by default, your master output, so what you're sending out to the live stream and the recording and so, is on default Windows playback device. It's not always a good idea to put it on Windows playback device. Enabled is often a better option. And here for headphones, you can choose something else. So it's now on my speakers, but if I connect my headphones here, they're not connected now, by the way. If I connected them, I can here choose for headphones. Okay, this is what I want to hear in headphones. A and B, these are separate audio buses, and I'm going to talk about separate audio buses later. But what you can do with them is, let's say you have a production, you're doing a recording somewhere, and in the main hall you want that people are hearing everything, but maybe in a second hall or on the live stream you want something completely different. Also, if you're doing, I've done a test with a bilingual live stream, so two people were speaking at the same time, one English, one Dutch. For instance, I can send the Dutch version on the A bus, for instance, and maybe the French version on the B bus. And then I can decide, okay, where is the A bus, where I'll send out the A bus and where I'll send out the B bus. So you can make a lot of combinations, what input you want to send out where. But as said again, I'm going to talk about this one, and you're seeing here virtual audio cables. I'm going to talk about virtual audio cables in a future episode. And here the default bus for new inputs is by default master. I think it's the best option, but you can choose if you're doing a production and every input I'm going to add now, instead of routing it manually to the A bus, I'm setting it here to A. And if I click then OK, every new input I'm going to add is going to be sent automatically to the A bus or the B bus. So as you see, a lot of options here. So I know it wasn't probably that easy to follow for everyone. For the seasoned guys, it's not a problem. For someone that's putting his first steps in the audio world, it's maybe overwhelming at the beginning, but it's something you have to learn. I told it in the first episode, we are producers, so we need to know a little bit about camera technique, a little bit about audio techniques, a little bit about graphics, a little bit about streaming. And some amongst us are audio engineers, and it's for them, it's a piece of cake. Some amongst us are cameramen, and they know everything about camera. But a lot amongst us, they know a little bit about everything. And it's by doing it more and more that you're improving your audio skills in this way. I learned a lot from other people. There's a lot to find about audio on the vMix site, on other sites. We talked about audio a lot on the Wall Show, which is, by the way, every Monday, 8 o'clock UK time. So if you want to know something about audio and you're not sure, you can always ask me, and if I don't know, or I'll try to find it for you. And if I can't find it, I'll try to ask an audio engineer. My big hope is that in a few months' time, I can ask a real audio engineer in my show, and that I can show him vMix, the audio options in vMix, and that he can give a lot more information about that. The first contacts are being made, and I really hope that we can make that happen, because that's someone that has done a lot of audio productions. Okay, now Martin is still asking if I can start all over again. No, Martin. And I forgot to share my screen again. Where were you when I first got vMix? I was learning from you, Merle, in the beginning, and I'm still learning from you. This is, and I really thank you, Merle, for this comment. This is why I wanted to start this show. And well, to be honest, I also got some negative feedback that, what are you talking about? Everyone knows it. But I got some really nice comments about people who still are hesitating to start with even the basic version of vMix, because they are so overwhelmed when you show them the interface. And I think if you can really do it in step by step, like we started with the cameras, then we started with audio. Now this one is probably going to be the most difficult one, and the one that I was not sure about what I could say about it myself. Because if you show too much and all the possibilities like this even this VST3 plugins, normally I shouldn't have done it, because I wanted to put something funny into the show. But I think some people really need the very, very basics, and because I'm still learning it, and you're going to be amazed what I'm saying, but I've learned most of vMix the last 5-6 weeks, because I was going into vMix, I was trying everything out before I was taking notes that I'm using now to tell you guys about. And that's the way I'm probably going to repeat it maybe 100 more times, but I'll try to teach you guys a few things, but at the same time I'm learning a lot. And in a few weeks when we come to shortcuts and activators and stuff, you're going to say, okay, now I know when I push a button, there are maybe 4 or 5 commands behind the button, but I know that it's mute audio input number 1, maybe it's doing that, maybe it's doing that. Yeah, we see that in episode number 2 or 3. And if you show immediately, like in Office programs, macros, look, I've done a program and it's doing that. Oh, nice macro. But if you don't know what's behind the macro, you're going to be lost the moment you start making the macro. And that's the same thing with shortcuts and overlays and stuff like that. If I'm not showing you how a simple title is going to be made, so what's the point of showing you the advanced stuff? And maybe, I'm not sure, but probably next week we're going to talk about titles and stuff like that. Okay, if you guys have any questions about audio, please free to ask them here. Thanks, Martin, for the nice comment. So I'm going to play my world famous X keys logo. That's say that's the official end of the show, but I'll stay 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes in the after show. So if there are any questions, so people can ask it to me. Again, thanks everyone for listening and watching to my show again. Those who doesn't have subscribed yet, bottom right corner, please subscribe, tick the bell so you'll be notified when I'm going live. And thanks for the great chat, and hope to see you next week. Bye bye. Okay, we're now in the post show, and let me use this one so I can do a little bit of self-promotion. Thanks, Dan. I hope it was a little bit interesting. I know it's a tough subject, and for everyone, also a tough subject to follow. Yeah, Martin Martin will always want to start me all over again. Am I not clear, Martin? Is it because you're always asking every week that I can start over again? So probably you can't understand me. I have to do something on my accent probably. Yeah, that's a great one then. Okay, thank you, John, for attending every week to my show. I hope that you learn, even it's one tiny bit from the show, that you have learned a little bit from it. And also thank you, Merle, for attending the show. Always a pleasure to see some live faces. I've seen here that 8 people were watching, so that's okay for me. As said earlier, I really like the interaction, and that's something I miss, because when we're doing the whole show, normally it's me taking care of everything social. So I'm watching the chat and responding on people's questions. But certainly with the topic that I wasn't too comfortable with, I didn't pay too much attention to the chat today. Apologies for that. But the lovely thing now is that the chat is still there after the show, so I can go through the chat. If there are any questions I didn't answer today, I can answer them next week. Dan is suggesting to send Martin to the step. I don't know if a step that size exists, Dan. So I don't know if you guys have any ideas. My plan is from next week on. This concludes more or less the difficult part of vMix. My idea was to start with titles and overlays, maybe. But if you guys have something else that you're saying, I think that's more interesting than titles. We can do it. I'm flexible in what I can do. As I told you in the beginning of the show, I'm on 2 weeks sick leave to start with. Maybe it's going to be longer, so I have a little bit more time during the day to do some decent preparations. But I'm going to take, I hope that the sun is still shining tomorrow and the day after, so I can have my walk and clean my head. But if you guys have any idea, okay, Merle is saying titles and overlays is okay. I'll start with titles, Merle, and I don't know if it's going to be too complicated, the combination, but I can start with the very basic stuff from titles, and at the same moment I can combine it maybe with social. So how to bring in it from other sources. I don't know if that's a good idea, or if you say no, maybe it's better to start with titles, the basic titles and overlays, and in future episodes the more advanced stuff, because that's something I'm struggling for the moment. If I take one piece now and do the basic and advanced in one, or just to start all the basic stuff and then afterwards the advanced stuff. So what do you guys think? What would be the best solution for you? Doing the basic and advanced in one session, or do it otherwise? Giles is for combine the two. Okay, okay, that's already one opinion. So it's 1-0 for the combination. Merle, what do you prefer? Everything basic or the combination? John, if you have a suggestion, please feel free. Okay, John is also for the combination. John Mull. Oh, that was actually to do with the beach volleyball. Okay. But I take the is a +1 for Giles. That's about the volleyball. Okay. Yeah. Well, don't push me for women's volleyball. Don't push me, because in a few months it's going to start all over again, and I'll try to do something for Tommy. Okay. So next week, probably titles, basic and advanced. If you guys have any questions about beforehand about titles, go to my website, to the contact form, type in your question, and I take your question. I'll handle it during the live show. Okay, let's welcome Drumlin Media. Drumlin Media is suggesting combine with the option for a Q&A at the end, explaining anything that new users may not understand. That's also another option, of course. Yeah, let's see how long it's going to take. If I only have for 10 minutes, then probably I'm going after the 10 minutes give some time for questions about the basic stuff, and then doing a second part, the advanced stuff, with all the other possibilities, and then after the second part we can have a second Q&A. Oh, Mr. Women's Volleyball is there. Hi, Tommy. Problems with your volleyball gear? Yeah, it's I think Tommy's still in a warp 6 time zone or something like that, because he's messing everything up at the moment. But thanks for coming by, Tommy. Okay. Yeah, John is saying Cambridge Analytics told us you were hanging around Facebook. Probably that's probably true. Well, this one is too good not to put it on the live show. So Tommy was standing on a Facebook corner waiting for the volleyball parade. Yeah, Tommy, and it's cold, so it's interesting at the moment. That's also a possibility, Mel, that with the time zone change, Tommy is taking his medication an hour later or earlier. And Tommy, be careful, because this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, Europe and the UK is, well, UK is still Europe. We're going to change hours, so then you're going to be completely out of your mind, I think. Okay, guys, thanks for your input. I'm going to end the stream here. Again, thanks everyone, and hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.